All right, thank everyone for coming here tonight to, I guess, traveling from near and far and on Zoom around the world to mark the Shloshim, the end of Shloshim for my father, Ailimelch, Ben Yittzak Aייzik, Dr. William Billy Schreiber. I'm sorry?
William Michael Schreiber.
Elliott's already doing the ad-libs over there. Okay, so this has been a weird period, and Rabbi Penner, somewhere around here, I think he left. Lisa sent me a share that he gave about 15 years ago on Avelis and mourning, and it was obviously very insightful. There are a lot of nuggets you take away from speeches like this. One of the things that resonated with me was this concept of the intensity of the Shiva, and then you break from Shiva, and then you go off into the world during Shloshim, but you kind of take the mourning with you. You have the beard, you're kind of removed from social environments and simchas, so it's a transitionary period. And even in Shul and Kaddish, when you're saying Kaddish, you still feel like a man apart from everyone else in the community. And you develop this kinship with people saying Kaddish, going through Avelis, in Shloshim, that resonate with you because they understand what you're going through, they understand the grief, and they understand the experiences that you are currently going through. And that is obviously limited to a very small population in the community. Similarly, in this room, we have close friends and family who have all experienced loss, being that of my father. And in a way, this kinship that we felt with you has helped guide us and help navigate this very uncharted terrain of Shloshim and Shiva over the last month. So we thank you for that. And I couldn't think of a more meaningful or better way to spend the next hour or two reflecting on my father than sharing it with close friends and family like yourself. So I thank you all for coming tonight. So what we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna reflect a little bit more on my father through a series of speeches, friends, family, and then we're going to close it out with a siyum given by Rabbi Dovi Nadel on Yishanas Brachos. He's been learning with the family over the last few weeks, and then we'll do benching and Milchamar. So before we get started, just wanted to, we're going to start with Tehillim, being mindful of our brothers and sisters in Israel and Hashem watching over them. So I'm going to have brother-in-law Rabbi Nadel come and say Tehillim and Gilom Aroth.
We start off with two Tehillim that personify Billy Schreiber. First one is Tehillim Tet Vav. Mizmor leDavid Adonai, mi yagur ba'olecha, mi yishkon b'har kodshecha, olech tamim u'poel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo, lo ragal al leshono, lo asal re'od ra'ah, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo, nivzeh be'inav nim'as, v'et yirei Adonai yichabed, nishbat ha'ara v'lo yamir, kaspo v'lo natan b'neshech, v'shochad al naki lo lakach, Ose ele lo yimot le'olam. Tehillim Kaf Chof Chet. Shir Hama'alot Ashrei Kol Yirei Adonai Ha'olech B'drachav Yagia Kapecha Ki Tochel Ashrecha V'tov Lach Eshtecha Ki Gefen Poria B'yarkitei Beitecha Banecha kishtile zeitim saviv l'shulchanecha. Ine kichen yivarach gaber yirei Adonai yirecha Adonai mitzion urei betuv Yerushalayim kol yemei chayecha urei banim lefanecha shalom al Yisrael. Beloved Chayalei Tzahal. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב הוא יברך את חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל וכוחות הביטחון וכל האזרחים בקווי אש העומדים על משמר ארצנו וערי אלוהינו ייתן אדוני את הקמים עלינו נידפים לפניהם הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמרם מכל צרה וצוקה מכל נגע ומחלה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם, ידבר שונאינו תחתיהם, ידרן בחטא ישועה ותרת ניצחון, וקיים בהם הכתוב, כי אדוני אלוהיכם הולך עמכם להילחם לכם עם אויביכם להושיע אתכם, ונאמר אמן. משבח לשבויים. וישבח אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב יוסף משה ואהרון ודוד ושלמה, הוא יברך וישמור וינצור אחינו בית ישראל השבויים, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם, ישמרם מכל צער וצוקה מכל נגע ומחלה, ישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם, יוציאם מחושך וצל מוות, וישיבם מהרה לחיק משפחותיהם, ונאמר אמן.
Thank you, Mark. So, before we get to our first speaker, Mark, thank you. Mark has the distinction of maybe in our generation knowing Daddy the longest, right? Going back to, I guess Mark's parents, Tilly and Annie, were founding members of the Staten Islands community and helped welcome in our parents in the community. So Mark has had the pleasure of knowing my father for many decades. I will say, Mark, it has been a pleasure watching you interact with my father over these years. You had a real knack for connecting with him. Humor, politics, business, you name it, see you in the elements. There was really something about watching you guys talk to each other, and I really, I think he found that time invaluable. And later in life, particularly you and Ariella, being the tour guides around the world, allowed my father, who was physically unable to do things he wanted to do, which is really see the world. Like, would you go to Dubai and Cyprus and Greece and all those places? So you allowed him to move forward, which is something he always wanted to do, which is progress. And his physical disabilities did not limit him because of your enablement and your support in all his endeavors. So thank you for helping him move forward and live life as full as he could until the end. Okay. Elliot's next. So this is a solemn event, but I'm gonna save my comments for after you speak.
I think I'm going to do without the microphone. So this will not be easy, so bear with me.
Shut off the microphone.
You need the microphone?
No.
You need it? It's with a heavy heart that I share thoughts for Grandpa. Special man who has been an integral part of my life for 38 years. Zahava, my daughter, made Grandpa Grandpa, and instantly his favorite grandchild. Dovi transitioned Zahava from favorite grandchild to favorite granddaughter. Baby Amy transitioned Zahava from favorite granddaughter to one of his favorite granddaughters. And Bella's birth, creating parents of all of Grandpa's children, caused Grandpa to complain. Lisa, you want to take this? He said, "This is Gan Eden. This must be what Gan Eden feels like." If this sounds like Chad Gadya, I'm going to get to that later. Grandpa's first words to me were, "Call me Billy." My Muncie and Yaki upbringing did not allow me to call an elder by their first name. Billy was not going to fly. I struggled, and I settled on Professor Schreiber. Then I struggled some more when I was introduced to David, Bert, Bernie, and others. Took me a while to understand Grandpa, his views, his reasoning, but as I grew older, I found myself adopting his views and mannerisms. Not all, but some. Much like Grandpa's control over the sitter that shall not leave the den and is always immediately returned to its place, I sleep soundly when all 4 car keys are accounted for and rest in my drawer. And like Grandpa, I understand the basics for the rule. If you deviate a little bit, the object will never be found. So we remain hard-fast in our policies and subject the users to intimidating rhetoric so they will follow policy. I found myself counseling others using the words of Grandpa to people discouraged in their professional career. There is no shame in providing for one's family. Simplicity. Grandpa found honor in one's commitment to putting in a hard, honest day's work and taking care of your family. That's the baseline. Commit to your family before anything else. It's that simple. If one thinks about a sitcom, the action takes place in a few locations. Seinfeld has Jerry's apartment in Monk's Cafe. Everyone Loves Raymond has 2 kitchens and a living room. All in the Family had 2 chairs in the living room. If I were to ask everyone about their most memorable sitcom-like setting with Grandpa, many would begin with the couch in the den. There, Grandpa could often be found grading test papers or balancing his checkbook while watching a football game or Fox News. The second location for each person might differ. Zahava may say Noah's Ark, where she celebrated her first 22 birthdays. Dovey might say Barnes & Noble, where Grandpa was a fixture. Yoni would say the Tel Aviv Hilton that enabled Yoni to sit with Billy while snacking on herring, a milkshake, and pancakes, Yoni's breakfast of champion. My second sitcom location was my dining room. For 30 years, we sat together for countless Shabbatot, Chagim, hope I'm not on a time limit. Birthday parties, barbecues, and celebrations. I sat at one end of the table, Lisa on the other. To my right was Grandpa. To his right, there was an empty seat. That's where Safta belonged, but she was in the kitchen preparing salmon, chicken wing salad, sponge cake, apples, herrings, apple and herring, actually. To the empty chairs right were my daughters. To my left were the meal's guests, followed by my sons. There would be King Solomon wine, salt, more bottle of apple juice. These are the nesachim to the korbanot. Throughout the Shiva, everyone spoke about Grandpa's generosity, his brilliance, his honesty, the Einstein quotes, but I'm going to bring everything to its simplest form and focus on simple love. Grandpa was the perfect liaison between a host and a guest. Each guest would immediately face a series of questions from Grandpa. They would be softballs, but the questions were relentless. It would start with names, addresses, and family questions, then move on to jobs and interests. The line of questioning would be to a 23-year-old young married couple or to an 80-year-old widow or widower. If you were at the table, Grandpa would embrace you for who you are, and he wanted to know what made you special. It would fascinate him, and it enabled him to bond with his new friend. Early in the conversation, the discussion would pause when Grandpa asked why I had not poured him scotch. Many might expect me to mention his fondness for Crown Royal or Shivas. 20 years ago, few things could change Grandpa. Not Easy Pass, online banking, or direct deposit. But he would always signal to me to pour the better scotch, a ritual we shared for years. Guests at our table, our friends from shul, anyone who offered Grandpa a l'chaim at their home, a seat at their house in a minyan, became a friend of Grandpa. A new friend would join the inner circle. The inner circle had rights and privileges, but no fees attached. Eligibility included receiving access to tickets for any event attended by the family, an allotment of spending money, and a take-home gift. No one from the inner circle was excluded, and the inner circle was constantly expanding. Grandpa would not forget a name, a face. He may need a reminder here or there, but once a friend is always a friend. And then there is me. I do not open up much about myself, and I don't discuss work and things like that as others may. Instead, I would challenge Grandpa. If he had a position, I would challenge it, and Grandpa does not budge. But I would challenge and persist, and eventually come up with the most obscure scenario. Often it would lead to a draw. Grandpa would look up with a great smile on his face, and he would say, "Well, yes, Elliot, in that scenario, I might agree with you." And we would share another laugh. Grandpa liked to say he was a libertarian. You don't tell Grandpa the maximum size Coke that is legal to buy. You don't tax him. You don't jail criminals, and you certainly don't tell him not to use foul language, because these are all triggers for the rebellious Grandpa. Grandpa would have been proudest of my son-in-law, Rabbi Donnie Bauer, who, upon being informed of Grandpa's passing, responded, Lisa, you want to take this?
No.
Blank. Grandpa acted on his own values, not by following instructions from a book. Grandpa was Grandpa and followed the following set of guidelines. Chazaka. What did his parents do? What did Rabbi Shapiro say? And what was the minhag when he was a child? Number two, what gives the most respect and kavod to the other person? And number three, follow your instinct. His happened to be based also on kavod abriya. It is this combination that made Grandpa's treatment of people flawless. In 38 years, I never heard Grandpa speak badly of anyone. And in exhibiting this behavior, everyone around him followed suit. No one was belittled, mocked, or negatively referenced, ever. Conversation shifted to many topics: Torah, politics, stocks, real estate, but never ever did it center on negativity about a person or people, not whether it was at the table or not at the table. There is no other person in the world that I know to whom I can bestow these attributes, and it is a rare form of Kedusha. Grandpa's upset at me right now for attributing Kedusha to what to him was simple and basic. Lisa, what does he say? That's just stupid. Yeah. The aspect that a person has corrupt intentions or malice did not exist to Grandpa. This is why he would say, better a thief knock at my door than break in, because I would give him anything he wants anyways. Because there is no thief. There's just somebody who needs help. Referring to my reference of the sitcom, we can all add to our list Grandpa at the Seder. Fort Knox would open and Grandpa's attaché case would appear. Goblets and Haggadah that out-aged anyone at the Seder would make their appearance. A 60-year-old Seder plate was displayed with 60 years worth of matzah crumbs. The Papa shots or test would rival great taste, great less filling. It did not matter if prices had risen and the King Solomon wine had exceeded $6 a bottle, Grandpa would splurge. Grandpa would demand the role of the Russia and insist to us that we would not actually blunt the Russia's teeth. Dovey, where's Dovey? You want to explain the reason, or we'll go on? Okay. Blue Greenberg and Aunt Sylvia would appear. Dayenu starring Joe Kamenetsky and Grandpa's brother Manny. And finally, the Billy Goat would make his appearance. How appropriate that Pesach is a moment in time that brings us our greatest Grandpa memories. The Gemara in Pesachim states that the Korban Pesach is not to be eaten by itself, but as part of a designated group, known as a chabura. People were invited to share a meal, symbolizing unity, collective responsibility, and a common purpose. This was Grandpa. He was inclusive and giving and kind. Simple love. Masechet Pesachim also compares the Seder plate to the Shulchan in the Beis Mikdash. A young couple is often wished build a bayit ne'eman b'Yisrael. How do you do that? The Seder plate is viewed as a mini Shulchan. It enables our table to transition into a kli of the Beis Mikdash, and not just on Pesach. Like the Lechem Hapanim, the Shulchan should never be empty. It is available 24/7 to assist others, and its contents are always fresh and available to those in need. Simple love. Like a parent is as happy as their saddest child, Grandpa could not move on if someone was hurting, and he used his koach to make another one's lot just a little happier and easier. Simple love. As I spoke to Yitzi's Masada Kedusha and gave the names of the grandparents, it momentarily escaped me of the relationship between Rabbi Cutler and the Schreibers. And it reminded me of how far-reaching an act can be. Grandpa Billy, he exclaimed. And then I remembered the love the Schreibers bestowed upon the Cutler family, upon the loss of their father over 35 years ago. It still resonated with the children. Simple love. To his friends in this room, Grandpa was as happy as you were on your best days, and as sad as you were on your worst days. You were part of his inner circle. You may not have gone to games with him, But if an organization or a family member needed him, he was there. He valued your friendship, and you all played an important role in Grandpa's life. To the 23 grandchildren, Zahav and Dani, Dovi and Michelle, Yoni and Michal, Kobe and Ayelet, Yitzi and Dasi, Yossi, Lior and Sam, Matthew, Alex, Zach, Gabriel, Bella, Jolie, Nikki, Ryan, Riley, Ethan, and the 7 great-grandchildren, Yair, Maya, Shalev, Nava, Liad, Adir, Nadiva. You are all different ages and have different relationships and memories of Grandpa. My heart breaks my Grandpa will not be walking down his baby Amy's aisle. My nephew Yossi told me his biggest regret is that his Kala one day will not have met Grandpa. There will be more weddings and great-grandchildren, and Grandpa's legacy will grow. The elders of the family have the responsibility to continue the legacy of Grandpa and share with you the stories and jokes of his memory. Every one of you is precious to Grandpa. The room became brighter when any of you walked in. Your achievements were Grandpa's pride and joy. Simple love. To his children, and though we are not in the photos of the WhatsApp group, it does include Mark, Karen, Abra, and myself. You are all remarkably different and yet so similar to your father. You dress better, you have better hair, you're tech savvy, you drive better cars, but you all have his essence. Wherever you reside, the town is a beneficiary. Generosity, sensitivity, family first, you all display the best attributes of your father. Simple love. Dr. Miriam, what can I say? You were always by his side. Sometimes a little slow with the baked potato, cheap on the salt. You definitely did a below average cat imitation. And your skirts were way too long. But nevertheless, you were his everything. You were his trophy wife. All day, all night, Miriam. Simple love.
What a speech, Elliot, thank you. Elliot, you were really one among the first son-in-law, first grandchild, first great-grandchild, first sukkah that fit one to 4 people. You pasted the word speech into his sitter after Musaf, which he did not find funny, although it was pretty funny at the time. He did not like it at all. But you brought a lot of joy and laughter into his life. And this has been referenced over and over again. Your seders have been legendary. Watching Grandpa come to life in Yurtza, 2 o'clock in the morning, with a mighty wind, like a maestro leading the Sheftilenos, dancing around the room, and really, really showing joy over his face. It was a pleasure to watch as a son. And your home with Lisa has always been a home of simcha and joy. And Lisa gets all the accolades, but the truth is you're the unsung hero. You always took care of my father. You always made him feel comfortable in their second home in Teaneck. You always showed kibbud and whether it be walking to shul or waiting for him at shul or staying in the seat because he tends to show up a little bit late. But it has been inspiring to see, and we thank you for everything, Elliot. Okay. Next up, we have Rabbi Charles Shear. Rabbi Charles Shear is probably, outside of my mother, the person who's known my father the longest, with a deep friendship and a long history together. And we are very excited or inspired to have him speak here tonight in front of us. So, Rabbi.
First met Billy in 1960, 65 years ago. We both entered Yeshiva University, although he was in the world of physics and mathematics, and I was in the world of literature and humanities. We established a friendship which continued throughout these years. The latter decades, to be honest, as things happened, we weren't as connected as we had been in our yeshiva years. But let me share with you some of those recollections that I have going back to those elderly years. They may not even be accurate, but this is how I remember Billy. There were three things that connected us immediately. First of all, we were both out-of-towners coming from the West Coast. He was from the famous Seattle. I'll explain to you why it was so famous. And I was from Berkeley, California. Most of the guys in our year went to RJJ. They lived in Brooklyn. They came from the New York area. The two of us connected immediately because we had no place to go for Shabbos. We didn't have a family to go home to for that particular occasion. But more than that, there was something that was very, very different. You'll excuse me. Those of us who weren't New Yorkers thought and behaved very, very differently. There was something that connected us. There was a kind of openness. There wasn't a sense of parochialism or propriety. And there was something about Billy that I saw reflecting the values that came from my Berkeley home and my Berkeley community. The second attribute was that both of us came from what you might call the former yeshivas. I graduated at Yeshiva in Los Angeles. Rav Simcha Wassman was the Rosh Yeshiva. I was very much affiliated with Telz and with Torah Vodaas. And Billy had spent the latter few years of his high school at Torah Vodaas. When I think of Billy Schreiber, I think of the Chef Schmeitzer. Those of you who might have studied in yeshivot know that Chef Schmeitzer is a very important halachic work. There are 7 different essays. It deals with the question of safek. There are a whole variety of topics. It was written by the Ketzos. Ketzos is probably one of the most important commentaries on Choshen Mishpat, dealing with Dini Mominus, etc., etc. And remember, our first time I saw Billy, he had the Chef Schmeitzer with him. He had a Seder, he was learning it. And I said, Billy, that's quite an undertaking. We were both very young at that time. This is maybe our first or second, not sure, I don't even think it was the third year in yeshiva. And here, the learning that he had meant that the type of undertaking that he did on his own was typified by that particular sefer. Not easily understood, difficult for a young Talmud at yeshiva. But Billy felt that if you want to study Torah, you have to study Torah to the fullest. And the Chef Schmeitzer indeed typified that. That was something that connected us immediately. The third thing was a little more historic, so to speak. I mentioned before that Billy came from the famous city of Seattle. It was famous to me because at that time, I had been introduced by another Seattleite to a woman who became my late first wife, my wife Gloria. Many of you knew her. She passed away in 1988. Thank God I'm remarried. My beautiful new wife Judy is with me here and is the mother of our, taken over the role that Gloria had as the mother of our children. I And Gloria was very, very close with Miriam Funk. Who was she? Well, many of you only know her as Miriam Schreiber. But in the early years, there was a guest at the Schrenzel home, Gloria's parents, quite frequently, and her name was Miriam. And although my late first wife went to City College, not to Stern, she was part of this chevra of young women who were going to Stern, of which indeed Miriam was one of them. And one of the main questions that the family had is, when is Billy going to finally pop the question? They were going out, a YU Stern couple. I was married in 1965, Billy and Miriam 2 years later. But the question was, when Billy finally gets his act together, he'll finally pop the question and they will become a couple as well too. What was the connection with Seattle? My father, who was a yeshiva graduate, father-in-law, was stationed in the army, and he was located in Fort Lewis, which was outside of Seattle. He became a ben bayit at all the frum homes in Seattle. And whenever he was able to get off of the base for a Shabbos, for a Yontif, he would go to the Schreibers, to the Funks, to the Genauer families. And when I went to yeshiva in my years, when Billy and I were there was a Genauer at least in every single class. And we became part of a whole chevra of Talmidim who were from the West Coast. I remember on one occasion, I was working in the Jewish day camp in Berkeley, and I couldn't get back to YU in time to make it for Rosh Hashanah, at least appropriately so. So my wife then, Gloria, and I went to Seattle for Yom HaNorayim. And we spent the entire period of time there. I remember very vividly, Miriam, that we were invited to your parents' home. We went to every single Genauer family. We went to the Schreibers as well, too, later on. And I remember that you were working then for Gray Line, the tour company. And you arranged a tour for us so that we could see this holy city called Seattle. And the Gray Line picked us up and took us all over, and we went to various places, and we even made it to Mount Rainier. I had heard a lot about this for years from all the friends of mine who were students at YU at the time. So my connection goes back to Seattle because of the family into which I then married. And when Billy finally got up enough nerve to pop the question to Miriam, it was a wonderful, wonderful simcha for all of us from the West Coast. A couple other images. I remember in the earlier years, we were both some of the young couples at the yeshiva community. I think you used to live on Bogarda's place, right? And then 179, something like that. 7-Eleven, right? And we were part of a whole series of young couples who used to daven together, to eat together, and our friendship continued in those early years of our marriage. I remember when you began to have children, and I see them here now, I recognize them as being adults in their own right. But going through that experience with Billy was something which was very, very special. We took our children together in various places, entertainment, and we shared the early years of our marriage life together. That's something that's very, very special. I remember Billy as always being a Baal Tzedakah. I learned later on that his family was thank God, quite substantial, but the simplicity, the way in which they lived, was a real education for me at that time. And I remember when the Schrenzel family said to me that you should really know that this is a family of means, and yet the simplicity, the way in which Billy and Miriam conducted their life, the way in which when a tzedakah came to Billy, he took it seriously. And I even remember one occasion, I don't know, Miriam, if you know this, he called me up because he was considering a nadava that had been asked of him. And he thought that as a rabbi, I might have some familiarity with tzedakah. He wanted to make sure it was a worthy one, and I could give him some league of what would be a proper gift for this type of an organization. Tzedakah was something that he took seriously, as he did his family and as he did his learning. I want to add one more point, and this is something that I cherish. Every single time we had a simcha in my family, Billy and Miriam managed to come there. It may have come a little bit late, but my son always knew if he had a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah. My other two kids are in Israel. But my son living here in Passaic, my son David and his wife Bonnie, when they had a simcha, we knew that Billy and Miriam would be there, even if we hadn't seen them at all during the preceding year. That the roots that had been planted through the Schrenzel family were so deep and were felt so intently. At the last time I saw Billy together with Miriam was indeed at Riva's wedding. My sister-in-law of my late first wife, her daughter was married, and Billy and Miriam came. I'm not even sure, frankly, if you had ever met her before. But they sat at our table, and I remember when Billy walked in, I said to Billy, "Are you still working?" And he said to me, "Sure, I'm still teaching." He's still at Staten Island City College, etc., etc. And I said to myself, what a bracha. That in addition to his learning, which I'm sure accompanied him, his concern for Kiyum Mitzvot, his particularity with giving tzedakah, which I knew was part of his values, that he was able to have an occupation that accompanied him throughout his life. And he was able to come to this particular family simcha that we had with his beloved Miriam. Thank God he finally got it together and popped the question. And I said to myself, what a blessing to be able to have in your life. That decades and decades and decades, here he is with his beloved partner that he met during his college years when we were both at yeshiva. And she shared his life together, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc., etc. What a bracha. That his interest in Torah mitzvot continued in all the ways that have been referenced today. And he shared it with his partner throughout his life together. When I see Billy's face, when I think of him, it's always with that great big smile. I see that belly laugh. I see that sense of pleasure, that sense of joy. And I say to myself, thank God, his was a life that was lived well. May he be a Melitz Yosef, may he be a good representative for all of us. And may his memory continue to be a source of inspiration in all the ways that are going to be illustrated by our remarks today. King Yiratzon.
Thank you, Rabbi. I'll tell you, growing up, the Shias, while you weren't members of the family, you were an unofficial extended version of our family. My father deeply valued your relationship. And of course, remember Gloria and Bernie Nestor Zunzel, they're Mishem Shav Aliyah. Okay, we are going to pause now for dinner, clear up the tables, main course, and then we'll come back with a few more speeches. Okay, we're gonna continue the last few speeches. Is that if everyone can take their seats? Okay, we're gonna finish up the night. We're gonna have two, potentially a couple of short speeches, and then the Siyum, and then we'll dive into the Ma'ariv. But we do want to get started because we're running short on time. So, and we'll serve dessert at the evening. Please will make sure you get dessert. Okay, we have appropriately enough finishing the night. Two grandchildren, the grandchildren speaking throughout the Shiva and Shloshim, and clearly the words have resonated with the impact Grandpa Billy had on them. So we thought it only appropriate we finish the night with a couple of representatives, starting with Alex Schreiber. David's old story.
I've been reflecting on my memories of Grandpa. Through the visits he and Sally made to Stanford, Riverdale, and Chicago. Through the conversations we had and the many conversations where my dad would share stories about Grandpa's unique qualities, humble lifestyle, and deep desire to help others in need. Looking back, I'm sure I was taking in more than I realized, but as a kid, I was mostly focused on the fun details. Picking Grandpa up from Starbucks and being treated to a chocolate chip frappuccino, going to Target and being told we could buy whatever we wanted, and hearing his compliments on my mom's sponge cake. As I think more deeply about those years and the lessons Grandpa passed down, two sayings come to mind. The first is a well-known Jewish proverb, Ezehu Ashir Hasamech Bechalko, who is rich, the one who is happy with their lot. The second is a more modern phrase, extra. Today, being extra usually means someone is over the top or never satisfied with simple things. I have learned so much from Grandpa, both during his life and since his passing, but these two sayings stand out, not just because of what they reveal about who he was, but because of how rare and meaningful those qualities are in today's world. Grandpa was always content, truly the opposite of extra. As many of you know, he liked his salad without dressing, his salmon without sauce, maybe there's a little too much salt, drove the same car until it wouldn't drive anymore, and worked in the same job for 54 years. And whenever you bought him a present, he'd simply say, "For what? I don't need it." Though I will say, he did love the Seahawks hat we got him as a secret Maccabee gift for Hanukkah. When I reflect on those two sayings, I realize the deeper lesson Grandpa left us. When you're content with what you have, it allows you to be extra for others. And that was Grandpa, completely content with what he had, but extra for everyone else. He gave so much to those in need, to his students, to the field of physics, and most of all, to his friends and family. He was content in every way that truly matters and strived to make everyone else around him feel the same. One memory that captures this perfectly was the last time I saw Grandpa in person, at Jolie's bar mitzvah. It was the last time the entire family was together, and I'm so thankful that Hashem gave us that moment. He had an incredible time that weekend. I remember his smiles while dancing with the whole family, especially with Saka Miriam. The simple joy, the dancing, the simcha, it all brought Grandpa so much happiness. And as always, that happiness spread to all of us. His smile, his joy, his laugh, it was contagious. It was a perfect reflection of who he was, someone whose deep satisfaction with what truly matters in life created a joy that was unforgettable and deeply felt by everyone around him. I miss Grandpa so much, but I know his unique way of living and giving is, in itself, a kind of proverb, one that has already been passed down to all of us and will continue to guide future Schreiber generations. I love you, Grandpa. Love, Alex.
Good job, Alex. Being a woman of faith and science, you are cut from a cloth like Grandpa, so I'm sure he's very proud of you and everything you're doing in life. Thank you. Okay, are we calling an audible here? We have the matriarch who decided to speak tonight. So, Safta Miriam.
Okay.
You want the mic?
Okay, I wrote the speech, the Levi speech, on the back of Billy's spinal. Now I'm using the test paper.
Who's the one? You want the mic?
Yes.
Use my, the mic.
Use mine. Where's? Thank you, Lisa. Can you hear me? Thank you, Lisa and Elliot, for arranging the Shloshim. We asked if you needed help, and you said no. You didn't want our help because this was your gift to your father. Thank you, Dovie, for bringing the family together every night to learn Mishnah Brachos. We look forward to it each night, and what made it so special is that you were always able to connect it to your grandfather. To my friends, for over 50 years, we have lived together on the same block or close to it, or within a mile. We knew your parents and where you came from. We have raised our children together, davened together, share simchas and avelas. We share a special bond. Through the years, you have been special friends of Billy. To Stanley and Linda, thank you for making this special trip from Chicago. To my Machat Tanim and to all the extended family, Billy has always felt very close to all of you, and you are very important to him. Thank you, everyone, for the kovod you have given to him, to Zev Elimela ben Yitzchak Eisen, by attending the Shloshim tonight. As Kobe, my grandson, reflected today at the kever for his Shloshim in Israel, he said that Billy was echad b'peh v'echad b'lev, one in his words and one in his heart. He was all the same. It wasn't only his family and community who were inspired by his character and goodness. As you know, Billy's day was not complete unless he went to Barnes & Noble to relax and read Volume 2 on quantum theory, and you almost finished that. So Dovie reached out to the manager and told him about Billy. And what's also very cute is that Dovie went to Barnes & Noble one day, took all his note papers, graded them there, and drank the coffee like Billy, half coffee, half water, and 3 sacraments. The next day on Instagram was the following paragraph. This is from Barnes & Noble. We are saddened to hear the loss of one of our regulars, Professor William Schreiber, but to us, Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill has been a fixture at Barnes & Noble since our beginning. He dedicated his life to teaching and helping others and was kind to everybody. Every barista knew his order. Every bookseller knew his name. He made a huge impact on the community just through his presence and kindness. Our thoughts go out to his family, his students, and everyone who loved him. One of the many people who came to our house was a person named Yaakov. He was a young man. I asked him to write about Billy, and he wrote the following. He always greeted me with a smile. You were always a teacher giving us advice about life. You never said, I can't. And may all the good deeds that you did for us be a merit for you for eternity. During Shiva, Davy wrote a post thanking the grandchildren for always bringing happiness to Grandpa. Everyone always made him a focus and priority when he was around. You sat with him, you shared his ideas, whether it was Torah, physics, life, or a game of chess. And now I want to thank you, my children, for all the kindness you have shown me this last month. And I'm sure Elliot is thinking in his mind, don't get spoiled because tomorrow's all over. You children have been so wonderful and kind to me. I'm so grateful and so appreciative. Thank you, Ariella, for being with me, and thank you, everybody. Everybody. And now, together as a family, we remember his quotes, his jokes, his thoughts, and ideas. Billy always said we stand on the shoulders of those who preceded us, and now we stand on your shoulders. We hope you can reach your high standards and your high level of Chabad and of Chabad, making a part of our lives your generosity, your simple love for ideas, Yiddishkeit, and family. We miss you. But your voice and thoughts will always be with us. And as Einstein said, and as Ariella said in her speech, life is like a bicycle. To keep your balance in life, you must always move forward. And we will continue to move forward on that bicycle of life, just the way you did. Thank you, everybody. That's it.
Thank you, Ronnie. It goes without saying your dedication to Daddy and your devotion to him, particularly the last couple of years, was above and beyond and inspiring to us. And hopefully we can give you the same love and care and attention that you gave to our father. Okay, we're going to move on to the Siyum Dovi, our Mashkiach Ruchani of the family, spiritual leader, right? From Reagan's, Onegs, I don't know, Kabbalah Shabbat and pandemics, you name it, you always bring your A game. You are a person who brings everyone together with a lot of spirit and joy. And you've been learning Mishnayos with the family for the last month, and it's going to give us Siyum to round out the night. Thank you.
Slightest of corrections. If you look to the back page, you'll see that while the Schreibers were the pioneers, we learned Masechet Brachot together. There are actually 63 Masechtot, the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, which were learned by people around the world. Many Federbruns were learning them. My Sahabi Schreiber was learning. Go on and on. You go through here, it's like every single individual. Some of my students from SAR signed up. So many individuals gathered together to learn 63 Masechtot, which altogether is 525 prakim, which is 4,192 Mishnayot. Le'ilui Nishmat Zev Elimelech ben Yitzchak Aייזיק. And now it is a bit ironic because I sat next to my grandfather for 3 years in a row on Yom Kippur, and he was learning the same Tosfot, Seskat Abatim, for 3 years straight. So my grandfather is a little bit more about iyun than Bekiut, but Baruch Hashem, we were able to learn something in his memory. And just a note, especially for those who plan on saying a Kaddish. The Kaddish at the end here, this Kaddish is unique. The Kaddish that we say at the end of the Siyum, it's on the second to last page here. You'll see it's the only place that I do not put an English translation. I thought that better than an English translation was putting pictures of his grandchildren, specifically learning with them, in addition to him getting a hole-in-one. Why not? But I think there's something powerful because that in a certain way is an interpretation of its own. The Kaddish bringing a person to life. We don't need the English when you see these two notes, but this Kaddish is the same Kaddish that we uniquely only say one other time, and that is at the Kvura. The Kvura itself, I was discussing briefly with Rabbi Penner why that is the case, and he said actually interesting, said maybe that the Kaddish actually finds that we say that Kvura, the burial, actually finds its origins perhaps. First place it's actually recited is at a Siyum. Because when you have a Siyum, when you learn Torah, in a certain way, what you're saying is every time you learn, you're touching eternity. You're touching something that goes beyond the moment itself. Every time that we learn Torah, we're grasping something beyond. I think, just to speak personally, it was amazing learning with everybody from our resident expert in Masechet Brachot, Riley, who knew the first few Mishnah, was so proud of knowing them. And Safta Miriam taking notes. I only found out yesterday that you were taking notes as we were learning. So it was amazing learning that. But every time we learned, there was always these moments where we were able to connect things to Grandpa. Just yesterday, we were learning Brachot Perek Tet, and we were talking about saying a bracha on a shooting star. And like immediately what comes to our mind is grandpa teaching everything from astronomy to talking about quarks. Who even knows what a quark is? From the smallest to the largest and everything between, trying to grasp the grandness of the universe. When you think about combining Torah and Chokhmah, I think grandpa really captures that image. So what I'm going to do right now is actually, we're going to learn together the last Mishnah in Masechet Uksin. Uksin was not learned by me. It was learned by Judah Hain. But I'm going to learn this Mishnah. It's the last one in all the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. After I say that Mishnah, I'm going to recite the text of the Siyum. I'll try to do it slowly. If you'd like to recite it along with me, great. Otherwise, you can stand. But just be ready. When we get up to the Kaddish, we'll all stand. Definitely, the Schreiber should definitely say the Kaddish alongside, and anybody else who learned or feels the desire to say the Kaddish should say it as well. One more note about a Siyum. If you take a look below Masechet Uksin, see these words, Hadran Alach. Hadran Alach. I just want to explain at least what those words mean before we go into it, and perhaps offer one more insight into the connection between making a Siyum and learning and Shloshim. The words go like this. Hadran Alach, this is not the official Siyum. Hadran Alach Shisha Sidrei Mishnah v'Hadras Alan. Daitan Alach Shisha Sidrei Mishnah v'Daitach Alan. Lo nitnashem minach Shisha Sidrei Mishnah v'lo titnashem minan. Lo be'al mahadem v'lo be'al badate. I'm going to read that in English. We will return to you, Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, and you will return to us. Our mind is on you, Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, and your mind is on us. We will not forget you, Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, and you will not forget us. Not in this world and not in the next world. First the Dvar Torah, and then a thought experiment. The Dvar Torah goes as following. What does it mean for the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah to be thinking about us? That's weird. Like, I think about the Mishnah, not there. I'm thinking about us. Right? Unless you think about the Torah as something dynamic, powerful, alive, it goes beyond the text. The Shisha Sidrei Mishnah is saying this is the Torah as an Eitz Chaim. And I think maybe knowing that the Torah is not meant to be just written, not just supposed to be written down, it's meant to be lived. And that way the Torah can think about us. Maybe we could think about another Eitz Chaim. My brother Yoni spoke beautifully about the Eitz Chaim that was Grandpa Billy in our lives. And perhaps as we read the Hadras Alan, in addition to thinking about the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, which in some ways are quantifiable, we can tell you exactly how many Mishnayot there were. But to quantify a person, I think we're all trying our best. But you can't say that Grandpa Billy equaled X amount of Mishnayot. It hit X quality, X quality, X quality. But it's an Eitz Chaim, right? There's something profound. Even between the quark and the shooting star, even that is not grand enough. But if I were reading the following line, what if I said like this? Maybe think about this as we do it. Hadran Alach, Zev Elimélech, Ben Yitzchak Aייזיק, Hadras Alan, Daitan Alach, Zev Elimélech, Ben Yitzchak Aייזיק, V'Daitach Alan, Lo nitnashem minach, Zev Elimélech, Ben Yitzchak Aייזיק, V'lo titnashem minan. This is the end of a period of Shloshim. In a deep way, we will return to you, Grandpa Billy, and you will return to us. Our mind is always on you, Grandpa Billy, and your mind is always on us. We will obviously not forget you, Grandpa Billy, and you will not forget us. Not in this world and not in the next world. We know that the Torah is thinking of us and that the Eitz Chaim, Grandpa Billy, is thinking of us as well. Final Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. עתיד הקדוש ברוך הוא להנחיל לכל צדיק וצדיק 310 עולמות שנאמר להנחיל אוהבה יש ועוצרתם עמלק. We're told that in the future God will grant every single tzaddik, seems like in Olam Haba, 310 worlds. The gematria of Yesh being 310. I found it powerful to think about the fact that if a tzaddik, what does it mean for a tzaddik to have 310 worlds? Many drashot are given here, but I just think of the fact that Grandpa Billy touched so many different worlds. Anchil Ohava Yesh, a tzaddik is given not just his world, but is granted so many other worlds as well. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta lo matzah kadosh baruch hu kli machzik bracha l'Yisrael ela hashalom. It's very powerful. Chazal and the rabbis, continuing the mode of Birkat Kohanim, we always end with shalom. We always end with shalom, and the same is true of the Mishnayot as well. There is no kli that holds bracha, blessing in it better than shalom. Shneimar, as it says, Adonai oz le'amoiten, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. In order for a nation to have strength, it needs to be filled within a vessel of peace. Many drashot we could give on that, but that is the final line of Mishnah. Here we go. Thanking everybody around the world who helped contribute to the siyum. I'm just a shaliach right now. I got my menachot, sota, and brachot in, and one random parak that somebody forgot to learn his vachot. So those I got. Hadran alach shisha sidrei mishnah v'hadras alan. Daitas alach shisha sidrei mishnah v'daitas alan. Lo nitnashem minach shisha sidrei mishnah v'lo titnashem mitan. Lo be'alma haden v'lo be'alma hadate. And very fitting that we repeat this a few more times because we're already repeating it. Hadran alach shisha sidrei mishnah v'hadras alan. Datan alach shisha sidrei mishnah v'daitas alan. Lo nitnashem minach shisha sidrei mishnah v'lo titnashem minan. Lo be'alma haden v'lo be'alma hadate. This is not a hefset. There's no bracha here. I'm just going to point out the pictures all around are all pictures of grandpa learning with grandchildren, or at least conversing in some way, because some of the children don't have the ability to speak. But you'll see here that the next line about the papas is all about legacy, about continuing learning of Torah. Here, some of the Shetei Ratzon Monoten Balam Hazel Teiman Lalam Papa Chanina Bar Papa Rami Bar Papa Nachum Bar Papa Achai Bar Papa Abba Mari Bar Papa Rafim Bar Papa Rafish Bar Papa Surza Bar Papa Adi Bar Papa and Dar Bar Papa. Arev na Adonai Eloheinu divrei matzav u'pinu fiyot amcha b'nit Yisrael v'niyeh hachnu v'tzetzeinu v'tzei amcha b'nit Yisrael k'manu yidei shemecha v'lamdei pratcha me'oivaytech ha'kmeinu mitzvotecha ki olam hi libi tamim b'chukecha l'man lo yivosh לעולם לא אשכח פיקודיך כי בם חייתני ברוך אתה אדוני למדני חוקיך אמן 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 סלע ועד. מודים אנחנו לך לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ששמת חלקנו מיושבי בית המדרש ולא שמת חלקנו מיושבי קרנות שאנו משכימים והם משכימים. אנו משכימים לדברי תורה והם משכימים לדברים בטלים. אנו עמלים והם עמלים. אנו עמלים ומקבלים שכר והם עמלים ואינם מקבלים שכר. אנו רצים והם רצים. אנו רצים לחיי עולם הבא, הם רצים לבאר שחת. שנאמר ואתה אלוהים תורדים לבאר שחת, אנשי דמים ומרמה, לא יפצו עמהם ואני אפתח בך. Try to read this a little slower. יהי רצון לפניך אדוני אלוהינו, כשם שעזרתנו לסיים 6 סדרי משנה, כן תעזרנו להתחיל מסכתות וספרים אחרים לסיימם, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, ולזכות כל התנאים והאמוראים ותלמידי חכמים, אמור לנו ולזרענו שלא תמוש התורה מפי זרענו עד עולם. ויתקיים בנו בהתחלתך תנחה אותך, שוכבך תשמור לך, והקיצות היא תשיחך. כי וירבו ימיך, ויוסיפו לך שנות חיים, אורך ימים בימינה ובשמאלה אשר בכבוד. אדוני עוז לנו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו והשלום. Choice Mizrach? יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, אלמד כי הוא עתיד התחדתה, וחיה מטיה, להפקה יתון לחיי עלמה, ולמבנה קרתא דירושלים, ולשחלפה החלה בגאווה. ומכר פולחנה נוכרעה מנערה, להטבה פולחנה דשמיא להתרה, ימליך קודשה ברכו ומלכותי ויקרא. בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, והגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. היי שמי רחם אך בעולם היה. רח וישבח בער ויתומה ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה ברכו. לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה. ושמחתה ונחמתה לאמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן. על ישראל ועל רבנן ועל תלמידי הון ועל כל תלמידי הון ועל כל מן דעסקים באורייתא די בהתרא הדין ודי בכל אתר ואתר. יהי להון ולכון שלום הריב ורחמים חיים וריחי ולכון וריחי פורקנה מנקדם אבהון דבישמיא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרב עמית שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. ועושה שלום ברומה ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.